Welcome back, scholars. Once again, we are studying the work of T.S. Eliot. Today, we will be exploring the poem and explicating the poem, Sweeney Among the Nightingales. So let's take a look into it. We'll delve in. Ape-necked Sweeney spreads his knees, letting his arm hang down to laugh, the zebra stripes along his jaw swelling to immaculate giraffe. The circles of stormy moon slide westward toward the river Plate. Death and the raven drift above, and Sweeney guards the horned gate. Gloomy Orion the dog are veiled, and hushed the shrunken seas, and the person in the Spanish cape tries to sit on Sweeney's knees. Slips and pulls the tablecloth, overturns a coffee cup. Reorganized upon the floor, she yawns and draws a stocking up. The silent man in mocha brown sprawls in the window sill and gapes. The waiter brings in oranges, bananas, figs, and hothouse grapes. The silent vertebrate in brown contracts and concentrates, withdraws. Rachel Nee Rabinovich tears at the grapes with a murderous pause. She and the lady in the cape are suspect, thought to be in league. Therefore the man with the heavy eyes declines the gambit, shows fatigue, leaves the room and reappears outside the window, leaning in. Branches of wisteria circumscribe a golden grin. The host with some indistinct converses at the door apart. The nightingales are singing near in the covenant of Sacred Heart, and sang with bloody wood when Agamemnon cried aloud, and let the liquid siftings fall to stain the stiff dishonored shroud. Okay, so what is going on in this poem? Well, we know it's about a guy named Sweeney, and it is an epic, it is a mock heroic poem, although Sweeney himself, big Irish guy, not necessarily heroic. In the first stanza, the hero has an apish appearance. His neck and hands resemble that of a Neanderthal or an ape. Comparison is made from the way he spreads his knees and hangs down arms like a gesture to open to get aroused. He's in an English 20th century English pub, a spotted giraffe. His neck swelling to reach far off leaves of a branch. It's a gesture symbolizing that Sweeney's openness for casual sexual encounters with women. Right? Now, what happens here is he's gone out on the make. He's looking for a woman to have sex with, essentially. And of course, this further feeds into the to Eliot's landscape of the wasteland, his hollow men view. It's an indictment. It too is an indictment of the lost generation, of the age which he finds himself, the London after World War I, where sexuality doesn't mean what it used to. Right? It's cheap, and everything has become cheap, and no one, people are just existing. Okay, so when Sweeney laughs, the strips of his jaw resembling a zebra are pretty prominent. And he sits in a relaxed mood with his knees, his arms hanging down, beside his fondness for both wine and women. The description of the first stanza can be inferred. His animal spirits are revived in the environment around him. He's more animal than man, right? He's this sort of gruesome, grotesque individual here. Okay. So, looking at stanza 2 here, the circles of the stormy moon. The circles around the moon seem to be moving alongside the windswept stormy clouds. This apparent movement of the moon seems to be headed westwards toward the river Platte in South America. It's a form of hyperbole, the lunar circle, the weather forecast. It's an omen of impending danger here. So, Sweeney is in trouble. Now here, the next, let's see. Yeah, and Sweeney guards the horned gate. The circles of the moon, we talked about that. And the next two lines, death and the raven indicates the god of death, and the constellation Corvus, the raven, move in the sky, spelling doom for Sweeney. Right? Kind of like, in America, we believe that 8s and aces they're called the dead man's hand. We believe it's a sign of bad luck, because that was what Wild Bill Hickok was holding when he was shot in the back, Right. So here, well, this is that sort of a metaphor, that sort of sign, death and the raven, the constellation Corvus overhead. So he's vigilant. He keeps an eye and watches at the Horn Gate, which is an allusion to the gates of the shadowy realms from Homer's Odyssey, Book 19. According to Homer, the dreams passing through the Horn Gate are genuine and can be fulfilled. Therefore, Sweeney guards the Horn Gate. That means the person is fully aware of what is coming for him. He guards the Horn Gate of his mind, not to get aroused and go astray, right? Not to get distracted by the women in the room and thus robbed. Gloomy and Orion the dog are veiled and hushed in the shrunken seas. The person in the Spanish Cape tried to sit on Sweeney's knees. Orion, the constellation, includes the dog star, which is also known as Sirius. It's covered heavily with clouds. It gives the indication of the coming misfortune in Sweeney's life. Seems everything around Sweeney is trying to warn him. The shrunken seas are abruptly silent, and the constellations are hidden behind doomed storm clouds. This reference to the Horn Gate relates to the murder of Agamemnon, and thus the poet builds the atmosphere of doom and disaster. It is in the indication of some impending misfortune or danger. The person, Eliot uses the word in place of woman or lady for the sake of internal rhyming. The Spanish Cape tries to seduce Sweeney, approaches him, tries to sit on his knees in order to trigger his libido, get him turned on. As a hero of this burlesque, naturally Sweeney instinctively becomes suspicious of her designs. And quite possibly Sweeney has an idea of what he looks like and how, it is unlikely that one of beauty would be so quickly attracted to him. He becomes instinctively suspicious, though. He pulls himself back, making it difficult for the lady in Spanish to take a seat. And there's no clear evidence the woman is actually sitting on his lap. She just tries. Stanza 4, slips, pulls the tablecloth. Sweeney shifts his knees, and the lady in the cape slips down, clutches a tablecloth as she's falling in order to save her. In the process, nobody gets, for heaven's sake, nobody gets mortally wounded. Only a coffee cup is overturned. The prostitute is at least humiliated. It's her usual act of seducing. She reorganizes herself and yawns as if she's bored, using the tactic at every customer, and she gets up, drawing up her stocking, pulls her stockings up to move and drawing Sweeney's attention, because it's going to draw attention to her leg. All right, the Silent Man. Now we have the appearance of the Silent Man in mocha brown. Fifth stanza, it describes Sweeney as a silent man in mocha brown. Firstly, for the term silent man hints at Sweeney's command over his senses. Like the prostitute, he is least disturbed by what happened. On the other hand, the color mocha brown indicates a leather suit he's wearing. Interestingly, the colors also makes him less distinguishable from an animal. The silent man in mocha brown, the color of fur. Sweeney lazily turns toward the windowsill and looks outside in order to show his disinterestedness. He gestures, he gapes, and he just kind of looks out the window like, what else is going on here? Resemble those of an animal. He keeps his eyes and his mouth wide open. Suddenly, everything is pre-planned. The waiter enters the scene, probably watches his fellow colleagues act and waits for his part to play. The waiter is one of the conspirators, trying to trick Sweeney out of his money. He brings oranges, bananas, figs, hothouse grapes, places them on the table in front of Sweeney. These exotic fruits have been bought to please the customers. On to stanza 6. The silent vertebrate in brown tears at the grapes with murderous paws. That section. In this section, Eliot uses silent vertebrate in brown in place of the silent man in mocha brown, further dehumanizing Sweeney. He's not a man, he's not a primate, he's a vertebrate, something with a spinal column. In a ridiculous manner, this phrase glorifies Sweeney's self-control. Even though he's animal-like and driven by bodily urges only, he's all, shall we say, id, always all pleasure-seeking, driven only by his libidinal energies. He contracts as if he's flexing the muscles. He tries to concentrate on what's going on, withdraws, or holds himself back from going astray. He goes, no, easy there, Sweeney. Don't get trapped here. Now, there's another prostitute, Rachel Rabinovich, whom Eliot spends an entire line as if she were another heroic character of this burlesque take. And in burlesque, it means that it's a send-up. It's a satire. It's making fun of the heroic poem. The usage of the Jewish woman's name is not a coincidence. Eliot probably tries to hint the status of Jewish women during the First World War. This name is also used to create internal rhymings for R and N sounds, contracts, concentrates, withdraws. Rachel near Rabinovich. The woman is seen tearing at the grapes like an infuriated animal with claws. She sits near the table of Sweeney, probably in murderous instincts. Sweeney has become suspicious of her intentions as well. He fears that both prostitutes wants to seduce him and then rob and kill him. After seeing the grapes in the conspirator's hands, he decides not to eat the fruits. He goes, I think I'll pass. Right? Okay. So, yeah, this is the heroic poem here would be something like the Epic of Gilgamesh or Boy Roland. And what this is here, this is a burlesque of it. It's a satire, because in the age that Eliot knew, in the period after World War I, there weren't so many heroes. There's nothing heroic about Sweeney. He's this big, burly, animalistic Irishman. And of course, there's no heroine here. They're just the two prostitutes. And so it's a poem about the heroic, ape-like Irishman escaping the clutches of the harpies here, these two prostitutes, right? As if to say, this is what passes for heroism in this time. This is what the world has become. Yeah. So let's move on to stanza 7. She and the lady in the cape, and declines the gambit, shows fatigue. In this stanza, Eliot casts light on Sweeney's presence of mind. As an epic hero, he can see beyond the veil of the treacherous intent. Both the ladies are part of some conspiracy against him. Sweeney, with his heavy eyes, tries to decode their plot. Whether his eyes are heavy for drinking or they symbolize wisdom, it's unclear. He somehow senses the danger, and to avoid being played at their hands, he fakes being fatigued and says, "Look, I'm tired." Looking at his heavy eyes, no one can sense otherwise. Stanza 8 leaves the room and reappears. Sweeney rushes out and waits outside the pub window. He thinks over the game the prostitutes wanted to play with him, and out of curiosity, he leans over the window to see what is happening inside. He peeps through the window, and which is covered with branches of wisteria, an ornamental flowering vine. You can see it around here. It says these big bundle of purple flowers when it blossoms. Sweeney feels delighted at his ingenious escape from the clutches of the prostitutes. It's a moment of victory. He has successfully passed the test. In order to ridicule him further, Eliot uses the phrase golden grin, a term often used to describe extremely precious and rare moment of experience. In Sweeney's case, his grin is hued with the color of ivory. His teeth are yellow. He's won the battle against his libido. Through his physical features show the opposite. Thus he laughs, exposing his teeth. And let's see, stanza 9. The host, with some indistinct converse at the door apart. The Nightingales are singing near the Covenant of the Sacred Heart. As Sweeney looks inside the pub, he finds the host of the place talking to someone indistinct standing on the other side of the door. Perhaps the host is plotting to hook another customer, and Sweeney can't recognize the other person. Could be the pimp, as it were. Meanwhile, the melodious song of the Nightingales grabs his attention. He pulls himself back from the scene and immerses in their sacred song. The song is coming from the convent house of the Sacred Heart School nearby. So the Nightingales could actually be a reference to the nuns or the girls of the convent. It could also be a reference to the prostitutes. Now, maybe Sweeney confuses the prostitute song with the pious chant of the nuns, which also tracks given Eliot's take on the modern age, the lost generation here. Okay, so finally the last stanza. And sang with bloody wood to stain the stiff dishonored shroud. The last stanza of the poem, Sweeney Among the Nightingales, tracks back to the point where it started. This section clarifies why Eliot uses an allusion to Agamemnon's dying remark in Sophocles' Oedipus at Colonus. The bloody wood is described as a place of singing nightingales. Bloody tragedies such as Agamemnon's death would have occurred when Agamemnon was being murdered. He cried aloud, but no one came to his rescue, and the nightingales threw their drooping on his shroud, dishonoring his death. It polluted the sheets that covered the dead body of King Agamemnon. That is, the nightingales defecated on the pall that they covered over, the shroud that covered his body. The references to nightingales contrast two situations. Number one, the prostitute's failed gambit in Queen Clytemnestra's successful attempt in murdering her husband Agamemnon. But so far as the nightingales are concerned, the murder of a king or the misfortunes of a demoralized character has no meaning for them. They sang and excreted in the same way when Agamemnon the king was choked to death by his unfaithful wife, as they are singing and excreting now in the trees near the pub where the plot against Sweeney is planned to be executed. So, it's one thing or the other for them. They sing and they defecate, they go about their everyday business as if nothing has really changed, right? So Sweeney's heroic escape is utterly meaningless to anyone but Sweeney. Okay, so there it is. A lot packed in there. If this left you scratching your head, don't feel bad. I took a summer graduate course on T.S. Eliot in the master's program, and most of the time I was just going, what is he saying? Yeah. So he's a very advanced poet, as very smart man, like to remind people of that, but there you are. So, Sweeney among the Nightingales. So, batten down the hatches. In short order, we're also going to be talking about the Wasteland and the Hollow Men. So, I will see you in the next video. And this has been T.S. Eliot.